The topic is the role of religion in public life. And of course, we're talking to the professor at Vanderbilt University, Dr. Baldwin. And of course, Dr. Baldwin, let me sort of pick up where we left off the last time. You were talking about the so-called mega churches, and you were making some distinctions between. Go on.
The mega church phenomenon, as I indicated, is a very recent phenomenon, and they're very interested in putting religion to the service of public policy matters, and of course emphasizing the importance of religion in the public arena. I think we need to make some distinctions between the way Dr. King related religious convictions to public life and public policy matters, and the way mega churches are doing the same thing today. Dr. King, interestingly enough, respected the boundaries that separate church and state. And I think we don't see a lot of that today with many of the mega churches and many on the religious right. I think there's a tendency to transcend those boundaries, not to transcend those boundaries, or to, they're not so clearly marked. The divisions are not so clear when you look at the religious right and the mega church phenomenon. But Dr. King was very clear in the sense that he always respected our tradition of the separation of church and state. The other difference, I think, is that Dr. King brought a prophetic dimension to his public expressions of faith. That is, he critiqued our values, he critiqued our institutions, our practices, he critiqued the racism in society, the economic injustice, the exploitation of the poor, the violence. But we don't see that prophetic dimension today with the mega churches. Mega churches, as I indicated,
almost the opposite, really.
Exactly. In the comments we made before we went on the air, I indicated that mega churches are concerned about prosperity and praise. You know, God wants you to have this. Jesus came that we might have life and have it more abundantly. So you have a gospel of prosperity, positivism, but not a prophetic social gospel. And that's an important difference between what Dr. King and what we see today with people like Eddie Long and Creflo Dollar and T.D. Jakes and Paul Morton and others. Now, not to say, I'm not saying that we don't need these people, because I think they're doing a great job in terms of pursuing charity ministries, that is feeding hungry. They have programs for people who are addicted to drugs and alcohol and that kind of thing.
The homeless. And
exactly. But they don't challenge the very structures that make people poor in the first place. And this is where Dr. King was different, I think. He challenged the laws, the institutions, the structures that make people poor in the first place, that account for substandard housing, that account for the lack of affirmative action, and equality, racial equality, economic equality. He attacked the structures, the institutions. And I think that's missing today with our mega churches, with our mega church pastors, with the electronic church. We don't see that today.
Well, now, Dr. Baldwin, what would you suggest that could sort of realign these various thoughts in reference to more social responsibility toward the gospel or toward for the church?
Yeah, I think we need to go back to what Dr. King once called a holistic gospel. Dr. King often said that the gospel deals with the whole person. It deals with the personal. It deals with the soul. Certainly we speak in terms of personal salvation, getting people saved, saving the soul, getting them converted, reborn. That's one dimension of it. But Dr. King also said that religion must deal with the social, the political, and the economic. That in other words, we should embrace a social gospel. The social gospel movement, as you well know, started by Walter Rauschenbusch, Washington Gladden, Josiah Strong, and other thinkers, had a heavy influence on Dr. King. So he always understood religion in both personal and social terms. That it deals with the personal, but it also deals with the social, which means that we should be about changing the world. We should be about feeding the hungry. We should also be about challenging those laws, structures, institutions that oppress people, that account for inequality in human life.
Dr. Baldwin, you know, since you're associated with one of the great divinity schools at Vanderbilt University, et cetera, let's look at